Hi guys, I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture.
And I'm Andy Murray from WhatCulture.
And don't forget, you can download the news as a podcast by searching for WhatCulture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from. But coming up today, Raw does a terrible number after Survivor Series.
An update on NXT potentially leaving Full Sail University.
And an update on Mauro Ranallo's situation in NXT. This is the news.
I have no idea why I delivered that introduction so weirdly, but let's kick things off with a little talk about last night's WWE Backstage. Obviously, no CM Punk on last night's show, but plenty of Triple H. Obviously, when this was advertised beforehand and people saw that Triple H was going to be there, but Punk wasn't going to be, a bunch of people got all speculative-y and started going, oh, well, that's got to be political, right? The doofus son-in-law can't appear on the same show as the voice of the voiceless, a man who has criticized Triple H countless times over the past few years, particularly in the aftermath of his WWE departure in 2014. But that had nothing to do with it. CM Punk was asked why he wasn't on the show by a fellow named Carlito Brown on Twitter, whose tag is @BaldGuy2011,
Nice.
my man, who said, "Why weren't you on the show?" CM Punk responded with the old Dennis Stamp meme from back in the day. I'm not booked for one thing. So yeah, just wasn't booked for the show, I guess, which is kind of a letdown. But when this thing was announced on WWE.com, they did say he would be appearing periodically as a panelist, not every single week. You're not getting Punk every single week, you're getting him every now and then. So no word on whether or not he'll be on next week's show, but if you want to know why he wasn't on last night's, no drama, no beef, no conspiracy theories, just wasn't booked.
And he's returning to the ring. Did you mention that? No, of course not.
Yeah.
It seems a little bit surreal. You'd sense that when you had someone of the stature of CM Punk, you'd have them on the first couple of weeks that you possibly could. Having said that, I'd sense this isn't political whatsoever. You don't return to, even though he's a Fox employee, not a WWE employee, I think they have probably ironed out the majority of the issues that he and Hunter had. But also, from a backstage point of view, as much as internet fans will not like this, Triple H is quite a decent replacement for CM Punk in terms of a star to have on your Fox backstage show.
It'll be interesting to see what the ratings do, because obviously Punk coming on was, what was it, an 80% boost, up to 180k from 100 the previous week or thereabouts. Without him, is the show going to be able to sustain that? Is it going to be able to hold that? How many people knew that he wasn't going to be on? Like, how many people tuned into expecting to see him and then saw he wasn't there and went, oh, that's a bit of a bummer, but kept watching anyway. I love ratings pattern. I can't wait to see kind of how that was reflected and how the number changes depending on who's on it going forward.
And of course, as we remember from that CM Punk podcast, Triple H is the main event in his own eyes. Right, speaking of ratings,
oh boy,
there you go. Let's talk about Monday Night Raw. Great episode, as we all agree, and coming off the back of a really good weekend generally for WWE. SmackDown was SmackDown, but then we had TakeOver and Survivor Series, so you'd think that they'd have a big old ramp up to Monday Night Raw, which would do a really decent number. Well, in fact, it is the polar opposite of that. WWE Raw this week averaged just 2.109 million viewers coming out of Survivor Series. That, Andy Murray, stat attack, is the second lowest non-holiday number in the show's history. Worrying.
That's a bit disconcerting, isn't it? Now, we should mention that, of course, Monday Night Football is a thing at this time of year, and I believe Monday Night's Raw went head-to-head with a big clash between my boys, the Baltimore Bastards, and the Los Angeles Lemon Lickers. So that drew about 10 million viewers. Obviously, that's going to take people away from WWE and towards that. But. They were coming off a pretty good, at minimum, pretty good, at best, great Survivor Series pay-per-view. You'd think that would drum up a bit of excitement. It was also one of the best Raws in a long time. There was loads of good stuff on there, from the Seth Rollins heel turn to the Rey Mysterio United States title win to loads of really just good, solid wrestling matches. So it's a bit of a worry that they can deliver like a good pay-per-view and a good to great show and still draw the second lowest non-holiday viewership of all time. Again, the football thing matters, but this number's down 11% on the previous year as well. So, not encouraging.
Having said that, this time last year, it would have been a terrible Monday Night Raw, and we'd have been lambasting it for that. So, fingers crossed, without being a bit of a WWE shill, which of course we are, and AEW for life somehow at the same time.
Yeah, we're biased towards both.
Hopefully, people will find out about what a great episode of Monday Night Raw it was, and will tune in next week, because all we've ever said is just keep making a good product and the people will stay and hopefully come back.
Yeah, that's the plan. Let's see if it comes to fruition.
Go Colts, by the way.
Yeah, I love the Columbus Colts. They're my second favorite team after the Baltimore Bastards and maybe the Seattle Salmon. NXT, Full Sail University. That terrible rhyme that I keep doing no matter, I don't know why.
We don't do rhymes.
We've spoken about, oh God, remember rhymes. We spoke about this a few weeks ago in October when there was a report that WWE were looking to take NXT out of Full Sail and maybe put it on the road into buildings similar to that, the size of AEW Dynamite, like those 4,000 to 6,000 seaters. That looks to be potentially coming to fruition in March. According to PW Insider, WWE have a contract with Full Sail University that binds them to the Winter Park, Florida venue until then, but after that they could theoretically branch out, take NXT on the road, put it in bigger buildings, which, as we've discussed before, is a double-edged sword, because part of what makes NXT is that small room. It's raucous, it's lively, the crowd are loyal, they're partisan, they respond to everything, they create what sounds like one hell of an atmosphere. But when you're looking at that tiny little room, which holds a few hundred people, and you compare it to like one of these medium-sized basketball or sports arenas or whatever that AEW are running, it does look small time, in my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of other people. So it's kind of a tough one. Both arguments have merit, but ultimately, I think a guy like Vince McMahon is going to be looking, going, "Hey, pal, we need to make this thing look big time. Take it on the road."
Yeah, and I think it almost plays into their hands a little bit here. Not only will you have a few more months of hopefully great television and going head-to-head with Dynamite and showcasing the phenomenal talent that you have over on NXT, but also, yeah, like you say, you need to visually, for a casual fan, make it look as big time as AEW, or at least maybe not at the same level. You do not want to have empty arenas with bits topped off, but you still want to make it feel like that cauldron of intensity that it is. And also, if it's March, the build to sort of WrestleMania season, I realise they're not going to be doing WrestleMania, but you know what I mean, is perfect for the first time to take it on the road. The final few weeks heading towards the big takeover of the year.
Yeah, Sports Entertainment Mania, or whatever they're going to call it.
Indeed. One question for you. Who do you think is going to win the Wednesday Night War tonight?
NXT.
You think so?
Yeah, I think they did a really great job of heating NXT up at Survivor Series and indeed TakeOver, and I think they'll continue their recent ascendancy.
Well, one man who won't be there, but may well be watching, so could help win that number.
That's number one.
Indeed, is Mauro Ranallo. You may remember we reported over the last few days this situation between him and Corey Graves and randomly Frank Shamrock in there. So he wasn't on the Survivor Series commentary team. They claim that was because he blew out his voice. Other reports said that basically he'd had a reoccurrence of some issues centering around the fact that Corey Graves just needlessly had a pop at him on Twitter because he's a bastard. And Post Wrestling has now confirmed that Mauro Ranallo will not call WWE NXT tonight, following on from all of that recent drama, which for me is a real shame, because as much as sometimes his commentary can annoy people, he is, in terms of getting you excited, one of the best commentators in WWE, as in a play-by-play person, of getting you like, oh my God, this is the biggest thing in the world. And the reason why he's not there is just a bad look for WWE.
Yeah, I think the best way to analyse this is to look at it on a human level. Mauro Ranallo is obviously a man with well-documented mental health issues. I think we've discussed this for 3 days in a row now, but there's new developments every single time. Coming out of it, I just hope that the man's doing all right. I hope that he's able to return to television healthy and happy and ready to go eventually. Yesterday, we talked about the report suggesting that WWE expected him to be there. John Pollock, in his post-wrestling update today, says there has been lots of communication between Mauro and WWE, but the decision was made for him to not be on the show. So obviously, things have changed between yesterday's report and today's. It's a shame. It really sucks for Mauro, really sucks for the product as a whole. I don't know who they can really bring in who's going to bring that same level of energy that NXT is known for.
Vic Joseph is probably my favourite play-by-play in terms of WWE right now.
Good announcer, Tom Phillips, good announcer.
Yeah, Tom Phillips, yeah, get him on.
It's a different vibe though, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
It's a different vibe. It's not really what you expect with what you expect from the modern NXT program. So whatever the case may be, get well, Mauro. Hope you're back soon as a professional.
Hopefully, as well, it'll give the chance for like Beth Phoenix and Nigel McGuinness to really, cover off the areas that maybe the guy they've brought in doesn't have the ability to cover off. Because I think Nigel McGuinness is possibly one of my favourite commentators in wrestling right now. And like you said, I'll just reiterate there. Get well soon, Mauro. We can't wait to hear you back on commentary. And if you're looking for stuff to do whilst you're not on NXT tonight, you could watch your favourite musical, of course. Mamma Mia!
How about...
Right, let's move on to your Twitter questions.
What about getting Frank Shamrock in, man? He's done MMA commentary before, right?
Oh, my God.
Get him to not choreograph
Punks on commentary. Exclusive. Punks on commentary. That's why I wasn't on Backstage.
Thumbnail title. Clicks 200k.
Right, let's move on to your Twitter questions at WhatCulture WWE, of
Punks
course. Tyler Holloway starts us off saying, with Seth and KO having a program on Raw, I feel like they will end it with a loser leaves Raw stipulation. It seems that they may have teased it on the Survivor Series backstage confrontation. What do you guys think?
I don't. Well, the thing is, I want to say I don't think so because WWE have just done something similar with Kevin Owens on SmackDown in the Shane McMahon feud. You lose, you're fired, and all this, and he actually got fired for a bit. So, but the thing is, it's WWE, so saying that they've done this so recently isn't really grounds because they'll just do it regardless. But I don't really get that vibe personally. I feel like messing around with the rosters again so soon after the draft is just not the best idea, and I hate these loser leaves whatever stipulations. They just suck in WWE because there's no permanence to them, is there? So I don't want to see it, and I don't think it'll happen.
It's difficult because you have to feel that this being Seth Rollins' first feud as a heel, he has to win it. Having said that, if you did some sort of stipulation that you can shift him over to SmackDown so he can feud with Roman Reigns as we head towards WrestleMania, as we suggested on yesterday's podcast, then maybe it could work. But I don't really see it happening, Tyler. Right, second question today comes from Michael Thorne, who says, with Royal Rumble approaching, I'm so excited, do you think there will be a men's and women's NXT Royal Rumble match? And if so, who would you book to win them?
I don't think there will be. I think that's too much to fit into one show, right? You're looking 4 Royal Rumbles, you're looking at 4 hours of Rumble matches, essentially. I think that's way too much. There's no room for singles matches and stuff unless they ran an NXT pay-per-view takeover thing the night before. Takeover Royal Rumble or something like that.
The problem is they've got the takeover Worlds Collide thing in mid-February, haven't they?
Yeah, this is the problem. There's so many...
Why not just have NXT guys in the Rumble? Because half the time they're just like, oh, here comes out number 15, Zack Ryder, and you're like, well, he's not winning. And if it's someone you know is not going to win, it may as well be Keith Lee because he's mint.
Yeah, if they're gonna do that, I hope they choose cool names as well. Remember when they went to Saudi Arabia for the Greatest Royal Rumble and the NXT entrants were like Tucker and Babatunde, who'd never been on TV. So weird. But yeah, no, I think that's the best thing to do.
Yeah. And if they are going to do one, I'd probably suggest Finn Balor wins it.
Finn Balor. Yeah.
I don't know, women's side, I think, take your pick. Io Shirai, Rhea Ripley. Who cares? Any of them, they're all brilliant.
Yeah.
Right, final question. I'll save this to last because it's a bit of a toughie, Andy Murray. Comes from Christopher Blade, a regular contributor. I see you, Christopher, who says, what, and be aware, I'm going to give you a minute to answer this because we could be here all day. What is the biggest mistake WWE has made this year?
Oh, God almighty, good question.
It's been a long old year, hasn't it?
It has, man, it has. When you sit, it's coming into reflection now as well as we're preparing year-end lists and stuff. Sitting there and so many things you forget about because so much stuff happens in wrestling these days. But I think... And it plays into recent things, and I'm going to get stick for this because we're kind of beating the piñata after the candy's already fallen out. But I think trying to make Seth Rollins the guy was a huge error of judgment. It looked good coming out of WrestleMania when you had these 3 feel-good wins with Seth, Becky, and Kofi. It just didn't work though. Seth.
It even looked all right after SummerSlam.
Yeah, there have been moments where he's looked decent enough, and he always works hard, and he always puts his in the ring. He always puts his best foot forward and so forth. But I don't know, he just doesn't have that magnetism. He hasn't pulled it off. It didn't work. Ratings, have been abysmal. That can't be pinned solely on his back, but he's certainly part of the problem because he was one of the guys who was booked on top. And wrestling is a star-driven business. If the star fails, the ratings fail.
And by association, I suppose you include the ending to Hell in a Cell in there, because that was just dreadful.
Yeah, Burying the Fiend's kind of part of that, really, isn't it?
Seeing as you've done a proper serious answer, I'm going to give you 2 answers, both of which are silly. Number 1, having Roman Reigns as the face of Stomping Grounds. He uses the fist. If it was called fisting. No, okay. And the other one, which is the most obvious one of all, the biggest mistake of the year, taking the tag team titles from the Iconics.
I knew that was coming. Speaking of Roman, actually, botching his comeback is a really good one.
Yeah.
Because they made a piss of that. Like, he's doing all right now, but they made an absolute piss of the comeback itself, didn't they?
I feel like there's a round table in this.
A hurricane of urine. Yes, there is.
Right, let's move on to today's and finally, and it's less a funny picture. Well, there's several funny pictures in here, and more just sort of life advice. If you're not following Dave Bautista on Twitter, go and do it now. We'll wait. Right, okay, now you're back. Oh my God, it's amazing, isn't it? I don't know what's going on with Dave at the moment.
I believe the term is #thriving.
Yes, indeed. Apparently he's now single. Fair play to him. And he tweeted last night, Dana Brooke, with just a photo of him stood in front of a very fancy car with a nice hat on that I could never pull off, saying, "So." Dana Brooke responded with a little gif of herself saying, "Not much, you." And Dave Bautista won the internet by tweeting a photo of him just looking ripped and with the abs and the muscles top off, Illuminati sign in his chest or whatever, and wrote, "Just standing around with my arms up. I see you've been getting those squats in. Peach emoji." He's just the best. Adam Cleary's best friend is just the best.
I want to know what Ennis Cantor thinks of this. Dana Brooks' 7-foot-tall boyfriend. If they're still together. This is great. Dave's great. Dave's the best. Dave's fun. Dave's nice. Dave's entertaining. Dave's good at social media. Remember that time he commented on that picture of Bailey? What does he say? Damn, Bailey's got a kadunk.
Yeah.
Good for her.
All I need him now is to tweet a gif of himself just saying, "Get me what I want!"
Give me 50 quid.
Let me know your thoughts on that and all of today's news stories in the comment section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. The Wednesday Night War preview with myself, the king of NXT and the man who made Simon Miller look like, or is going to make Simon Miller dress as a clown, Adam Cleary, and the paid shill of AEW, Michael Sidgwick. We're going to be previewing the Wednesday Night War a little bit later on today. Plus, let us know your thoughts on Twitter and send us your Twitter questions at WhatCultureWWE. Watch there, follow both of us. You can follow him at
Andy H. Murray. The H stands for Hail Satan, Worship Doom.
You can follow me at Adam Wilbur. Follow us all at WhatCultureWWE. As I said, my thanks to Andy Murray. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon.